Welcome back, whiners, to the Wine About Data podcast, giving you one less thing to whine about. My name is Amanda Lopez. I'm president at Transform Consulting Group. And today we're going to be talking about ethical data storytelling. And I'm joined by my colleague, fellow Transformer, Rose Johnson.
Yeah.
Rose, please introduce yourself to the podcast.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me, Amanda. My name is Rose Johnson, a senior project consultant, and really excited to talk about storytelling today because I think it's such an important part of our work, but it's also important to do it in an ethical way, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
right. A lot of the nonprofits that we serve and the clients then that you're serving, are really reaching a lot of different individuals, right? And touching upon some really sensitive information.
Yeah.
And so we want to be aware of that and thoughtful about information and data specifically that we share and do it in a way that is not harmful for individuals who we are serving. So that's what we're hoping to cover today in the podcast. But before we get into it, let's talk about what are we drinking today? So, Rose, I picked up, this is one of my favorite go-to drinks. It's been for many years. If anyone has a Trader Joe's in your neighborhood or community, you know that you are blessed.
Yeah.
That's
true.
And my husband's from Southern California. And so I feel like we're especially a Trader Joe's household. So when we moved to Indiana, I was very sad. There wasn't a Trader Joe's here, but eventually Trader Joe's realized they're missing out on the Midwest market.
Of course.
And they came here.
We love snacks.
Yes, we love all the good things. And they have such a great wine shop in their place. But specifically, they have a sparkling wine, which is what we're drinking today. And it's almond flavored. And I love almond flavored things like almond flavored cookies and other things. But I think it's a really neat thing to have in a drink. So let's try it.
Let's do it. I really like it.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. It almost tastes like a macaron or like a little dessert or something.
Yeah, I think it's subtle. So you could, if you love to have a mimosa,
Of course.
right, then you could still do that with an orange juice or your juice of choice.
The best.
Okay, well, that's a fun treat there. But we want you to join us regardless of what you're drinking in your cup. So whether it's wine or coffee or a water, that's great. So let's get back to the topic of today, which is ethical data storytelling. So let's first, I think before we get into it, one of the things that we're really passionate about at TCG certainly is helping you have your data and have really good data to talk about the impact and the need of your nonprofit, but then using it to tell your story.
Yeah.
And so that's such an important part. And as our colleague Amanda Lopez says, you never want to be the best kept secret as a nonprofit, right? And so, how do we do that though in a way that is helpful and not harmful? But first, let's talk about what is the storytelling process that we recommend for all of our nonprofits that's evergreen, regardless of the topic. And so there are some key steps that we like to take our clients through when we're wanting to use data to tell their story, right? And so that first step is, who's the audience? Who are you communicating with? Are you communicating with funders? Are you communicating with potential clients, with partners? Right? Because who you communicate with will really vary how and what information you want to share with them, right? And then the next step is, what's the problem? Like, what are we trying to solve in sharing this information? Because that's what it is. It's information. Data is information, right? And then what do we hope is a solution?
Yeah.
Right? So we're not just dumping problems, but like a solution that we're hoping to solve. And then if this happens, what's that transformational success that we hope to see as a result of that? And so the ethics that we discuss really need to, be woven into that storytelling process, again, so that we're protecting our clients and protecting privacy and, just being really thoughtful about that. So that ethical storytelling layer that we're thinking about is really thinking through the quotes, the stories, the individuals, that we highlight, so that we're making sure that, that we're being thoughtful about that and not pushing them out there and, hurting anybody in the process as we're talking about the story and protecting everybody's rights and dignity in the process.
Exactly. And I think really ethical storytelling, it puts those you serve in the driver's seat of telling their
I love that
story, which is a really beautiful thing.
Yeah. And I think most of our nonprofits, right, we're often are about empowering the individuals that we serve. And so this is just another step of sharing that opportunity of, usually it's to celebrate, the success that they have had through partnering and, being a part of your nonprofit, but ensuring that they feel comfortable and confident with sharing that information.
Exactly.
Yep. So how does data play a part in ethical storytelling?
Yeah, it's a great question because I feel like it doesn't at first, right, imply data. But what we know from prior episodes, and you just touched on it, Amanda, is that, data is more than numbers. Data
Absolutely.
is information. It's any information that we can use to inform our decision making or to tell our story of impact. And so, an important part of data is the
The
stories,
human side,
the
right?
human
I
side. And
mean,
ideally, we're combining that with the numbers.
absolutely.
And so ethical storytelling really focuses on that piece of the testimonials, the quotes, and bringing that type of data in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we love to say, the data storytelling formula, if I were to sum it up, is like the numbers
Mm,
with the personal story, and that can equal then the impact, right? That is like the magic
yeah.
for the causes that we all serve. So, what are some things that our listeners should keep in mind, when they're collecting stories from their clients or their partners or from individuals that they want to be able to share?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a couple of really good tips. The first one, that comes to mind is, put out an open call for stories.
Right.
I think, particularly for fundraisers or marketers,
Mhm.
we may know of a story that is really powerful and it may be really tempting to approach that person and say,
Yeah.
gosh, we really want to share your story.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, that can often pressure somebody into sharing when they're not comfortable. And so to approach storytelling in an ethical way, it's really helpful to put out an open call and allow anybody to come to you who has interest in
Yeah.
sharing their story and who's ready.
Right. I love
Mhm.
that too, because sometimes we might miss opportunities
It's true.
of
Yeah,
individuals that we don't immediately think of, but then actually they're actually comfortable sharing their
exactly.
story, right? So being
Exactly.
able to put that out there for everybody is a great first step
Exactly,
in the
exactly.
process.
Yeah. And I think along those lines, another tip that comes to mind is whenever possible, it is great to meet face to face with somebody
Mm,
who is considering sharing their story on behalf of
yeah.
the organization and think about who that person might be most comfortable with. And so,
Yeah.
if you're a fundraiser or a marketer, they may not know you
Yeah.
even. And so think about,
Right.
is there a program staff member that they have a close relationship
Yep.
with? Maybe it would be helpful for them to be part of the
Hmm.
conversation. But, it's a big ask to ask somebody to be vulnerable in that
Yeah.
way. So it's great to give them whenever possible the respect of a face-to-face meeting.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that as well. And also just to think about like who's their safe person.
Exactly.
Yeah, who's
Yes,
somebody that
exactly.
they trust, and really feel comfortable with, and hopefully, just continues to ensure that trust with the whole organization too,
Yeah.
that they're gonna, protect them and their story.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think the
Absolutely.
other, key thing too in meeting with them is to talk about all the different ways that they're gonna share their story. So
Yeah.
nobody's surprised. Like,
Mhm.
wow, you're driving down the highway and you see a billboard now with your name up there. Like, okay.
You don't want that. Not good. Yeah, be transparent. This
Yes.
is you're asking them to be open with you, and they deserve the same respect of being open and transparent with them about how you anticipate using their story and what that's going to look like.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is important too. I think putting out that open request helps you get a lot of different individuals, hopefully.
Mhm.
But it is important to have a backup plan.
It is, because like I said, it can be a really vulnerable thing to share your story of impact. If you, particularly if you're serving folks who, maybe it was in a difficult time in their lives when they were
Right.
supported by your organization. That can be a hard thing to talk about. And so somebody may change their minds and that's okay. So
Yeah.
it is really helpful as we are creating materials or
Mhm.
other tools where we anticipate including stories to have a backup plan so that people have the option of changing their minds.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah,
really love that as well. And I think one of our last tips too is also to share any information with the individual so that they have a chance to review it before it goes live.
exactly. Exactly. And work it into your schedule, right? Because we might be on
Uh,
deadline, we're getting things out. And I think that those are the times when it can be hardest to stick to our ethics, right? Because we're trying to keep to that deadline. But it's really critical to allow somebody a last look to say, yes, this is accurately representing my story, and I feel good about putting this out.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I know, Rose, we're talking primarily about, the clients that we serve,
Mhm.
but I found that a lot of nonprofits have staff
Oh,
who
yeah.
have really great, what we call lived experience.
Yeah.
So maybe they were either a recipient of the program themselves, fell in love with the organization, the work, and then became a professional to work on the other side, of the table there, or whatever their journey might be. And so also to think about your own staff who might be comfortable sharing their story.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so I think we would want to honor that same process for them as well.
Yeah, and those stories can be especially powerful. I've been able to share my story in that way, being a staff member after being served by an organization I was really passionate about. So, grew up in the Boys and Girls Club and then worked
Hmm.
as a staff member for a while. And it was especially powerful to be able to share my story from a couple different perspectives.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rose, I was thinking of that. I was giving you not the evil eye, but I was like,
I love talking about it, but it's funny, that's a great example of you let people come to you when
yeah,
they're ready, right?
right.
And I would say, it was a decade after my
Hmm.
experience attending the Boys and Girls Club when I really had some time to reflect on the impact in my life
Yeah.
that I felt ready to speak publicly about it and to share my story in that way to bring
Hmm.
others to the mission. And I think that because I was in the driver's seat, like we're
Yes.
saying is so important,
Right.
it was a really empowering experience and really exciting to be able to share in that way and support a cause I care about.
Yes, I
Yeah.
remember when we were onboarding our new engagement with the Boys and Girls Club of America, and you were just so thrilled and excited. And,
Yeah,
we're willing to share your story,
exactly.
not just with our team, but have shared it multiple times
Yeah,
as
yeah,
we've worked with several states now. And I know that that's been such a powerful opportunity for those new clubs that we've worked with because
exactly.
they're like, she gets it.
Yeah, yeah, it's something special. I think that one's dear to my heart for that reason. And I think it really shows why, ethical storytelling is so important because when we follow these
Hmm.
guidelines, we create an environment where sharing a testimonial, sharing a story, sharing a quote is part of the empowering experience for those that we serve and part of them really celebrating your organization and the impact you had in their lives. So it can be a beautiful thing when it's done well.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are a lot of really great resources out there,
There are.
some helpful tools and forms and guides. And so we'll make sure to link all of those in the show notes for our listeners so you can really, have some other resources to help you
Yeah,
understand how do we, unpack this process. Well,
absolutely.
we've already been talking about it a little bit, Rose, but how does it work in real life, right? And some of the examples of working with our nonprofits. And then I'm also going to share for those of you who are working with the media,
Mhm.
because that is some of the work that we've done with our clients and making sure they're not being a best kept secret in their community, but being able to pitch stories to the media.
Mhm, mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll share, from a nonprofit perspective, I think in real life it means planning ahead for
Hmm.
ethical storytelling. That open call, you got to plan that
Yeah.
time in, right? And then, having a good relationship with your program staff as well. If you're a
Hmm.
fundraiser or a marketer, have a connection with those program staff members, get to know them, have that relationship with them so that they can be part of that conversation as well
Yeah.
and help you to understand, what stories are out there and how
Yeah.
it's best to put that open call out so
Right.
that people can come to you.
Yeah. Absolutely. I know that when we've started to do this broadly with nonprofits and really wanting to help them just strengthen the storytelling that they're having in the community, that they'll put that charge to their leadership team. And
Yeah.
so making it a part of maybe even every leadership team meeting where those leaders can come in and say, hey, here's a great testimonial we have, here's a success story, here's a something. And so we're starting to kind of build that repository,
Yeah,
of
exactly.
clients that, are comfortable with the services. And so that when an opportunity comes up, like we
Mm,
want to have some new marketing materials or we're
mm,
wanting to have an event and we want to have somebody either come and talk or we
mhm.
want to have something to share, that you can start to build that into your staff
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
help collect some of those stories.
exactly.
Because we do
Yeah.
think that that's just really powerful,
Mhm.
and such a great
Mhm.
way to tell the value and the impact of your organization, bringing that
Definitely.
human side to the story. But certainly also another great opportunity, and we hope that you're taking advantage of this, is getting some earned media.
Yeah.
Some free marketing is always the greatest thing out there, right? For nonprofits, we feel like we never have enough in that budget
Mm,
to support marketing. And so one of the things that hopefully you're doing is pitching some stories about your services to your local media. And we
absolutely.
absolutely want to make sure that we're thinking about the ethical storytelling in that. And so, like Rose said, working ahead helps to make sure that we've got a good agreement in place and we have some
Mhm.
individuals that we can talk about. But, if there's a new program that you're launching or there's a
Mhm.
celebration, a graduation that you're wrapping up, thinking ahead to those key dates or milestones that are
Yeah.
happening that you think are great stories to pitch to your local media and helping to pull that information together. It's always great to have a quote in there, a photo, if we're
Yeah.
comfortable,
Yeah.
sharing again.
Yeah.
And that's where we talk about with those individuals, how comfortable are they with sharing
Yeah.
names?
Exactly. We set those expectations in advance. And that way, when those opportunities come forward, we already know we have some really powerful short stories we
Mhm.
can share, and we've gotten permission to share them in that way. Right. And the media, we know, loves the human
Oh,
side of a story. Right. That's
yep,
just as important as the data is the human side for
yep.
sure.
That's the 1-2 punch there, right?
Yeah.
If we can have both, that's certainly the magic. And just like we talked about earlier, we want to be fully transparent. So if we are pitching a story, an individual is going to be included, we want to give them a heads up.
Absolutely.
And especially if you find out later that it is going to air, like if there's going to be a TV story or if there's going to be an article, we want to continue to keep that communication open with our client. We don't want anyone to feel like they're being taken advantage of
Never.
or
Yeah.
used, right? That they,
Absolutely.
again, are in the driver's seat here.
Exactly. Exactly.
So hopefully those are some helpful tips to take along your journey of telling your organization's story and making sure that we're protecting all of those involved in that process as well. Well, we've shared a lot with you today in our ethical data storytelling series, right? As always, Rose, I feel like there's so many tips here that we're talking through as far as the data storytelling formula.
Yeah.
What does ethical storytelling look like? But what is there like one key takeaway that we'd want for our listeners to do?
Yeah, I would say the first tip is train your team.
Yeah.
Make sure that your team is aware of this, is
Yes.
aware of the importance of ethical
Mhm.
storytelling. I know we'll link this resource, but ethicalstorytelling.com is a
Yeah.
fantastic resource. They've got some great go to tips as you are training your team, as well as some resources, tools, and templates. So
Mhm.
that's a good place to start. But, train your team on this so that everybody is aware
Yeah.
that it is really important to follow these guidelines as we are telling stories.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say too, along with your team, to also think about who are the other champions at your organization, your board, your volunteers too. We want to make sure that everybody is aware of one, the value of telling your story, which is wonderful. And we hope you have champions out there, but that they're doing it in a way that's ethical and that honors the client.
Yeah,
And so again, also train kind of that broader audience of those champions that
absolutely.
are supporting your community and your nonprofit.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, whiners. Well, we hope that we gave you one less thing to whine about today as you think
Absolutely.
about your storytelling and doing it in a way that is ethical. But we definitely want to keep the conversation going. And one of the best ways to do that is to make sure that you're following us on social media. So you can go to transformconsultinggroup.com and go to our website, and you can find all of our social media handles there. We do a lot of great posting of new articles and resources and tips that we're sharing with nonprofits. You can also sign up for our newsletter. We don't spam you. So we're only churning out information that we find helpful and relevant to the work that you're doing, all with the goal of giving you one less thing to whine about.
One last thing.
Well, cheers to all of our whiners, to the great work that you're doing to transform lives every day. Cheers, Rose.
Cheers.